Hey, Moms Off the Record listeners. I'm so excited to invite Caley on today. She is one of the reps for Rad Moms Union. And if you've been a longtime listener, then you already know that we've done wonderful episodes with Natasha Vargas Cooper and Andrea Haskins of Rad Moms Union, both in 2024 and 2025. So now to kick off January, really excited for a slightly different take on things. So, Kaylee, without further ado, I'm going to have you take it away. Tell us a little bit about your background and how that is relevant to what is going on with these outbreaks lately. Specifically, we're thinking about the by heart botulism outbreak.
Hey, Kat, thank you so much. Yeah, I kind of have a different take and background when looking at a lot of these different things with the By Heart recall. I used to work at a lot of consumer goods manufacturing, which is funny because it leads into like this crunchy life that I now live. But I spent a lot of time in apparel, in testing, things like that, and then baby goods before I had children. That's really what set me off because I was testing like for BPAs and certain plastics and, lead and paint and these little baby accessories and things like that. So we'd fly over to China, check out the factories, make sure these factories were following all of these testing standards and things like that. And, that's really what got me started thinking about the way corporations sometimes manipulate the systems to make sure their products can get on the shelves and things like that. But
Yeah.
I didn't have kids yet. So I was just doing what the companies told me. So I visited so many different factories in China. And it was quite the experience. I loved it, honestly. Really saw how things worked, how they, did their quality assurance and testing and things like that. So I've been to all sorts of different factories. I then got into organic food, which was all US produced products, which was different.
Yeah.
And I visited a bunch of different factories. In the US and saw how organic food was made. And this was really my intro into the organic food industry. I'm honestly a huge advocate for organic food, and it started, 10 years ago when I did that.
Yeah.
And I would help these factories get organic certified, USDA organic certified, gluten-free certified, vegan certified. You see all of these certifications. Most of them are just marketing, you know?
Mm.
So, I had that background, and then I was introduced to Radical Moms Union years later after I had my babies and went through this whole transformation of giving birth in the system, outside of the system, breastfeeding my babies. And then I started to see, these women talking about marketing a formula, which I didn't really put a lot of thought into until I saw the practices these companies were using. Um, and, it just blew my mind. And then now looking into how they're producing this ultra processed formula powder
Yeah.
in these factories in the US and really digging into that and seeing these problems they have and then asking the questions like, wait, why aren't they following the strictest of requirements when, this snack company that I worked for, followed these very strict protocols to make sure the quality was top notch. And I'm not really seeing that with the formula companies, which just blows my mind. So that's really why I'm here.
So why aren't they?
Well, a lot of the times, most of the times, these formula companies, like if you look at ByHeart, they own their factories, right? So when I worked in the food industry has its own problems. It's very hard to get into and to make money, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
you can't just start a bar company and have your own factory, right? Yeah, especially when all of these, what they call co-packers, have bar lines, right? Like they already have the infrastructure set up for a company to come in and say, I have this great idea. I have these amazing ingredients. Can I make these here? Sure. Pay us money. By the way, you want to make your bar here because we have this top notch SQF3 quality certification.
Hmm.
So we'll help you make a quality product. And by the way, that's like the highest rating for quality within the food industry in the US. Okay. So these companies, pay a lot of money and they do spend a ton of time to have these certifiers come in, it's third party, and say, wow, you guys have everything set up. This is top notch. This is clean. You're doing everything you can. All of your ingredients are being checked at the door. All of these protocols.
Yeah.
And um, anyway, so that was a big deal that these companies did this, these co-packers. And what I'm seeing within the formula companies is like By Heart, again, to go back to them, they bought older factories. So they said, we have all this money. Let's buy our own factories. Let's control it ourselves. And, we'll market the crap out of this product and mass produce formula. Well, when that happens, you don't have all of these other sets of eyes making sure all of these quality protocols are being followed. And why would you spend all this money getting this certification if you don't need to attract other business? Like you bought an old factory, you're making your products. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
Yeah.
So are you saying for food companies, it's illegal is it illegal for them to buy their own factories and then circumvent all the regulations from the outside?
It's
Or
not illegal. It's just easier for them to start out by using these mass factories that are already there, that already have the infrastructure, already have used larger brands' money to help them kind of build up different lines. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Mhm.
So you can't start like that. You have to have millions and millions of dollars to be like, here's my factory, here's all my special machinery, to make this brand. So look at like RX Bar. Remember them?
Yes.
So they came up with this product, great ingredients, found someone to help them make that, found someone to help them grow because these manufacturers help them. They invest in the brand. When they see this brand booming, they'll be like, we'll help you finance this equipment to make it easier to make this bar and then package it. So they kind of work together and then they get sold to whoever it is. Like that's kind of how the food industry works.
Mhm.
The formula companies, it's different. It's just
Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah.
And so to see like this facility in Iowa where ByHeart was being made, and then these reports from the FDA, which is another conversation, like for them to come in, that happens way later in the process, right? So
Yeah.
to see like 15,000 bugs or insects or whatever was in that factory, to see them reporting mold, standing water, like never in a million years would I have seen that with the snack bar organic companies that I worked with. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Will we be able to include in the episode show notes the evidence where there were all these insects in the standing water? Because I know my listeners will want to know
Yes,
about
and
that.
that's
Okay,
yeah, there's a huge New York Times article that really kind
great.
of spearheaded this, and we can
Okay.
include that for sure, but there's been a lot after that.
Let's now connect the dots. We still have influencers out there who have been shilling for By Heart formula, who have left their ads up on their Instagram grid even after everything has come to light with there was an outbreak, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, would this have ever happened if there's an influencer selling like a food product, let's say, or a prescription medication? Do you think that we would still be seeing those ads on their grids even after an outbreak or people had food poisoning or something?
That's such a great question, and, one of the things that I specifically remember when I was talking about this really high quality certification these factories would get for food. One of the things that they prided themselves in when they got this certification was that they could recall a product in 4 hours, pull it completely off the shelves in 4 hours from being notified of this issue, calling all of their retailers, and it would be completely off the shelves.
Mm,
Isn't that I mean, that's because they take it so seriously because it's so dangerous, right?
right.
So they want to be able to say, "Don't worry, like, if there's a problem, of course, it's done. We've got it. We'll pull it off all the shelves." What did we see with the formula? It's still on the shelves. The ByHeart formula is still on the shelves in Arizona as of, I think it was 3 days ago. There's still a can.
It's so hard to wrap my head around. So, do you think that they're trying to claim, like, oh, no, no, the formula that's in the cans on the shelves today is not the same batch that was affected by the outbreak? Do you think they're trying to pull a fast one on us like that? Is that even possible?
I don't think they're trying to pull a fast one, but I think it's they're set up differently, right? Than like a snack bar company in a
Right.
Kroger. So this is like their relationships with the retailers. Like either I think they haven't communicated well enough. I think there's a lot of things at play, like maybe the buyers are, I don't know. But what I do know is that it's not like a regular food item at a grocery store that is used to doing these recalls. It takes it very seriously.
So, for listeners out there who, for any reason, have to or choose to use formula, and maybe these listeners have at one point even considered or actually purchased by heart, what would you say to them if they said, yeah, well, I mean, we know that generic formula is crap. Like, we don't want Enfamil or Similac. So that leaves us with, like ByHeart or Bobby or Nara Organics. So, well, Kaylee, like, what would you recommend we do? Because it sounds like they're all bad. So, like, what formula do I even choose? What's the good one?
I can't really recommend one, Kat. I really can't. And the more I look into it and the more I dig into formula companies themselves and their manufacturing practices, like it doesn't matter which one's seed oil free or organic or has all these, clean purity labels, um, when the risks for all of them are the same and are still there, like that's the problem. And that's really why I got into Radical Moms Union, and really got loud was because I've always been like a huge advocate for organic food. Like there's less ingredients, there's better ingredients, there's more testing for pesticides or things like that. But when you look at formula, it's such a deeper issue. Like there are things like Chronobacter that are the real risks that aren't being tested for.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you look at Bobby, there's a purity label on there, right? Have you seen this? You look at
Uh,
ByHeart, there's a
no.
purity label on it. They talk about it all the time. I looked into it, of course, because I used to certify these brands. You
Yeah.
pay money, you show test results, and you get a label slapped on your product, and then you have moms being like, "Look how pure this is." Well, do they test for botulism?
Right. Because that's pretty
Do they test
impure.
for Chronobacter?
Right. So,
No.
okay, the Chronobacter issue was with Bobby, and then botulism most recently was with ByHeart. And what makes this so egregious too is, isn't this the first ever actual reported case where the FDA is actually admitting
Yes.
that there's a tie between botulism and baby formula?
Yes, correct. And the Chronobacter was actually with Abbott, I believe,
Right, Abbott,
not
right.
Bobby.
Yeah.
Um, yes, this is the first reported case of botulism in infant formula ever.
Okay. So, what, in your opinion, after looking at all the influencer ads, so all the online influencers who have been pushing By Heart formula, what would you say are some of the most egregious marketing practices that are displayed here? What are they not telling moms or not showing moms when they are posting these ads for By Heart? That what would you like to see in a perfect world?
Well, I don't wanna see any influencer marketing for baby formula because, like the World Health Organization says, like, baby formula, infant formula should not be advertised because it affects public health. So that's the bottom line. Um, Recently, I've thought, why don't these infant formula companies have warning labels? Like, I used to work doing little baby accessories, and there would be, small parts warning labels.
Yeah.
Like anything
Yeah.
that has a small part, like that was a big deal. We would go through it. We would look at these little toddler necklaces and be like, "Oh gosh, this is too small. A baby could choke on this." You have to have a warning label then, or we're pulling this product. Like, why isn't there a warning label on powdered formula that says, "Hey, by the way, parents, this isn't sterile."
Right.
Like,
I
how
mean,
hard would that be?
You know, it's interesting. I worked with an IBCLC after my firstborn just to make sure I got the latch right. And she said with her 4 kids, and she said this so nonchalantly and quickly, it sort of went in one ear and out the other. But she said, "Yeah, I would never use formula. One of the main reasons is because it isn't sterile." And after that, like 4 years ago, I didn't hear anyone else talking about the unsterility until Radical Moms Union brought this to light, you know? People aren't really talking about it. So, um, okay, let's talk more about like what do you see for the future of ByHeart as an organization and like, the CEO, the factory workers, the factory, the influencers, like what is going to be the trickle down effect that you would like to see?
A lot of people in my world think they're done because this is so bad, which I
Yeah.
could definitely see that. I don't know how you come back for that. And I was actually just looking at some clips of the CEO the other day. We were pulling some clips. Of course, every time he's talking about his company, it's all about how the $90 million of funding that he got and how he did that. And, just revolutionary. He said it was hard to get investment because, of all the risk involved in infant formula, but we did this and this. So I think a lot of that will come out now, which is interesting, but I don't know if they can come back from it. I don't know. They have what? One SKU? I mean, think about it in that point. Like you sell one SKU. I guess they have those on the go packs too,
Right. Which I want to talk about that too. That's an interesting point. I'm
but
glad you reminded me.
they could start, white labeling or producing another brand in their factory.
Sure, toddler milk,
Yeah.
totally unnecessary. So it's like, okay, the trend was all about Bobby and people weren't really paying attention to ByHeart. And then now they're looking to ByHeart. And now isn't ByHeart offering coupons to Nara Organics, right?
They were at the beginning. I
Okay.
remember seeing that. So they were basically saying, "Sorry, use this other formula," who, by the way, doesn't I mean, they're all doing the same thing, but they're organic too. Use them. And she partnered right up. Not to mention, Bobby really took advantage of this recall too. I remember shortly after, you know, this came out, there's a recall, and then there's a email in our inboxes about, "Hey, sorry about the recall. Sign up for our subscription, by the way. Switch to us and, be set up for the next 6 months," or whatever it was. But you could just see them capitalizing on this, makes me sick.
Let's talk about some of the actual real life implications of a baby who is sickened or got botulism thanks to this by heart formula plant outbreak. So, what does it look like early on those symptoms? Like, can you tell us some anonymized stories of real babies affected by heart? Like, how are they doing now? What was their hospital experience like?
I just saw a little boy that was in the hospital. I just saw an article about him yesterday, and he's still on a feeding tube. It's weeks and months of rehabilitation in a hospital, from what I gather. I don't know a ton about the effects of botulism on an infant because I've just never experienced it, but I know it's sickness for a long, long time. Um, when you look at other bacterial infections like Chronobacter and things like that, I do know that can cause like brain damage and,
Mm,
paralysis and all sorts of things. But um, yeah, I don't know a ton about
yeah.
the actual effects.
What were some of the other gory, scary details that you observed from the By Heart factory? Things that you would never even dream of encountering in it, like even third world countries. Because we talked about the insects in the
Yes.
thousands. We talked about the standing water. Is there anything else that comes to mind?
Rats was a big
Right,
one.
rats.
So I
Jeez.
remember seeing that, which I can look at this a couple different ways. So again, I would go to factories in the countryside of China to visit them. Plastic factories, glass factories, literally paper roll, like
My God.
toilet paper factories. I never saw rodents or rats. Now, of course, did they clean up and put on a little show for us when we came? I'm sure. Um, but when I read that rats breeding there was evidence of rats breeding in this factory. I also grew up in Iowa. I used to walk beans, like walk the soybean fields and cut the weeds down. I've never seen a rat.
Wow.
I've seen field mice, sure. But when I heard that, I'm like, how bad and disgusting is this place? When I used to import ingredients into a co-packer for food in Chicago, they check everything. Like every flaxseed that was entered, every bag,
Wow.
they pull open, check for bugs. And sometimes there were bugs. And they would say, "Hey guys, there's bugs in 2 of these bags. We're shipping it back." It goes they don't
Oh my
even
God.
check it in. It goes back. So, like, looking at it from that perspective and then reading about rats and insects, I'm like, what is going on here? That's why I started to look into these certifications within the US formula factories. I'm like, why don't they have these? Oh, because they own them, because it costs money, you know?
Is it fair to say that even for a crunchy, holistic mom who does want to use formula for any reason, that maybe she is better off using Similac or Enfamil? Or do you think it's just as risky as By Heart?
I think it's just as risky because the big risks are these bacterias that come
Right.
from the mass production of an ultra processed food. Like it's
Yeah.
not sterile. And
Right.
and they're right in a sense that they're not gonna test every single, you know, glob of powdered formula. It's never gonna happen. Should it happen? I don't if we keep up with these marketing practices and say that formula is great and, better in some cases for your mental health and all these sorts of things, maybe they should.
Hmm.
Or you need to tell parents that it is not sterile. Like, why isn't there a warning label? Well, because it would affect the bottom line of these companies. That's why.
But so cigarettes, they now have a warning label and they have for quite some time. Warning, whatever, tobacco can cause cancer. But
Right.
people who are addicts will still buy cigarettes,
Right.
right? So it's not really affecting big tobacco's bottom line, right?
Well,
And
I mean, it has in the long run,
right,
right?
right, right. Big picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, and
Uh
you're right. But and that's just one small
Ozempic.
seems like a logical right.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on Ozempic, cat.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, what's like the big call to action here? Like because there's something big coming up on January 28th. This
Yes.
episode will air January 27th, so people will still have one more day left to join this call of action. And can you tell us a little bit more about what the plan is?
Yes, we're doing a huge call to action, a big event on January 28th. It's really an extension of our Moms versus Meta campaign that we launched on World Breastfeeding Day in August, which was really calling out Meta, who allows these ads, continues to allow these ads. They're still up when babies are sick, babies are in the hospital. This continues to happen. We're also calling out the CEOs of these companies who continue to market this way. So January 28th, join us. It's Radical Moms Union. We are calling out Meta and we're calling out these CEOs who continue to harm babies through their marketing.
How are we calling them out specifically?
How are we calling them out? We are getting a group of women and using people power to target these companies and point out their wrongdoings is what we're doing.
Yes, but quite literally. So are women going to be making posts with
Yes, we're
Okay.
all posts. We have a bunch of rallies. They're actually starting this week. There's Zoom rallies. Come to one. They're always a great time. Unfortunately, they make you really angry a lot of the times because you kind of
Yeah.
hear what's really going on. But if any of this is something that speaks to you, like there's a huge group of us and we keep growing and we are making strides. Like every year it gets, and you've seen it, Kat.
Yes, yes, I've been a part of it since 2023. Unfortunately, when this episode airs, it'll be the day before the 28th, so the rallies will be over, but you can still take action even if you haven't participated in a rally. So you can DM
Yes.
Kaylee or me.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so you said something interesting before about the single use on the go packets. Yeah, it really bugs me when I see influencers pushing those, and it really speaks to our modern convenience obsession and like motherhood culture. Like everything now has to be in a single use packet, which is obviously bad for the planet, but it just takes an extra second. Like you don't, not everything has to be prepackaged, like through a drive through. So this really appeals to the busy mom on the go who's booked back to back with activities. But what is it about the single use packets on the go that's particularly nefarious?
It's a great question. Um, well, if you scroll through ByHeart's, hundreds and hundreds of influencer ads, you'll see moms pulling out a water bottle from the back of their car or their diaper bag. I don't know, where this water has been. Has it been heated? Is it sterile? Taking just a regular water bottle, dumping the packet in there, shaking it up and giving it to their baby. So, and this is a brand that is now had to pull all of their cans of formula off the shelves because of botulism. So now, not only do we have influencers, promoting formula, they're promoting an unsafe way of preparing it. And then they don't even give instructions in their little caption or anything, you know?
Right. And I think the big misconception after I've spoken with moms is that, oh, I thought we're just supposed to filter the water because the water has heavy metals and toxins in it. But it's like, no, it's actually the water needs to be boiled because the formula itself is unsterile. So,
Right.
yeah, of course, it's not ideal to get the water from the Zephyr Hills water bottle, but it's even way less ideal that it's not boiled because of
You're
the
right.
powdered formula. It's a formula thing, not a
Right.
water thing specifically.
But
Um,
most people
yeah.
do not know that.
Right. Right. So it would be nice if, like, with vaccines or any medication, there was a black box warning. Yeah. So, okay, if you could talk to, or I guess if you could make real change with the standards and the regulations with formula manufacturing from your professional experience, like, what would you like to see done differently?
Well, one of the main things that I keep thinking about and asking questions about is why aren't infant formula factories and manufacturers required to have the absolute highest standard, quality standards, manufacturing standards, testing standards? It should be higher than anything, right? Like we're
Right.
giving this to infant babies. And instead, I kind of see that there's more ways to slip through the cracks because of the way they're regulated. They're like this special item. It's not drugs and it's not food. It's infant formula. Well, you should have the
Hmm.
highest of everything, and that's definitely not what I'm seeing, and that's why we have these issues.
Hmm. So, right, it would require theoretically like a third category. You said it's not drugs or it's not food, but from your experience, would if you had to place it in a category drugs or food, what do you think infant formula should be? Is it a drug or is okay? So it's like a prescription drug.
That's the way I
Yeah,
look at it. I
right.
mean, what
Like
about
an
you?
intervention.
Yeah,
I can see how it goes both ways. Just like I see ultra processed food, it's not it's chemicals, don't get me wrong. It's not GRAS generally recognized as safe. I wouldn't want it, but like it's an interesting question. Theoretically, I think McDonald's is a drug, not a good drug. But like, if someone were to ask me, like, "Oh, is that burger and fries? Could it be food?" I'm like, "Yes, it's not the food I would choose, but I guess some people are eating it like food."
yeah.
So I can see it going both ways, but I see where you're coming from.
The only reason I say that too is because I truly believe that pharmaceutical marketing should be regulated. Like, I, I want that banned. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, if infant formula goes in that bucket, then guess what? It's banned there too.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I would love to see that too. Do you think if it was easier for moms to get their hands on donor breast milk and if hospitals encouraged it more and if influencers, instead of talking about how hard their breastfeeding journey was, so I got by heart, instead if they're like, oh, it was really hard, but hey, this was how I found some, quality local donor breast milk, do you think we would see formula sales tank or do you think there'd still be a market for moms who prefer formula? Regardless of the risks.
I don't know if we would see them tank, but I
Yeah.
think they would definitely lower. Um, it really is the marketing, Kat. Like, it's
Yeah.
the marketing that these women are seeing everywhere that normalizes it
Yeah.
and doesn't show them the true risks. Like, if they knew the true risks and all of these women were like, "Try this instead. Wait, like, this isn't sterile. You could this will affect your mental health, your baby's mental health, their health." They might take a breath
You know
and
what I was
choose
just
differently.
I was just thinking is, we always like to poke fun, we, you, me, everyone, we like to poke
Yeah.
fun at the pharmaceutical ads on we hardly ever watch cable TV, but the once in a blue moon we turn it on, you see it's always like, people dancing and they're laughing, and then in the background you're like, "And this might cause diarrhea, vomiting, death, stroke, heart attack,
Right. You'll die,
tuberculosis,"
but you'll be
and
skinny.
right, and it's like, can you just imagine if these influencers were forced to so it's the same exact formula ad, but they were forced to smile and laugh and dance, and then they were like, "And this might cause botulism, coronabacter, hospitalization, feeding tube," like, I I think that is what should happen. Okay, so keep doing the ads, but you have to say that, and you can't say it on, like, times 10 speed.
Yeah, I think that would help, but I think we're also so numb to it. Like,
Yeah, you're right.
I
Yes.
mean, this is my grandma, so she's not breastfeeding, but, every ad she sees, she's like, "Should I try that?" Because 'Cause we're so used
Right,
to it. Like, this doesn't harm anyone. Everyone's
right.
doing it.
Right. We got
So,
through it. Yeah,
yeah,
that's very true.
sadly, it's true.
What do you think, like, the mainstream media or the general public is missing? How are they not still connecting the dots when it comes to the harms, like starting all the way from what's going on in these formula plants to how it's affecting babies? How can we help them connect the dots even more if this message has not yet landed with them?
That's a good question, and a lot of the times I think about this when I look at, like, the crunchy community, like,
Mhm.
the organic food advocates. I'm just like, why don't they still get it? Because we saw this huge push for like stork speed, right? And you had this whole
Yes.
conversation with Natasha about it. And at first, you're like, oh, this sounds good.
Right.
It's like, oh, at first, Bobby sounds good until you realize how malicious the marketing is and how it affects the mothers and the babies' lives. Like, that's what I think we're missing. So you can talk about how you chose formula or why it was better for you all day long, but no one's really connecting the dots about how this affects a woman's life in the future right after she chose this and the baby's
Yes.
life. It's like I don't know how to convey that really.
Yeah.
Do you?
Um,
I mean, you do a good
no.
job here.
Yeah, this is I mean, I feel like I've tried all the strategies and elevating voices like yours, and, I will say it has made an impact. Like, there's always
You're
going to
right.
be people who don't align with this narrative, no matter what the narrative is. But, it has made an impact even for the moms who still continue to choose formula. They at least are walking away with new life-saving insight like, "Oh, shoot, I didn't know I was supposed to boil the water. Okay, well, maybe I can
Right.
do that." And then maybe it will make them think differently about the influencers who are leaving that information out and more discernment can be used, right? So it's sort of just like breadcrumbing, I think,
Yeah.
you know?
And for me, it's, like, always going back to, like, what can we actually do?
Yeah,
Like, what can we do? Like, I don't know, 5 years ago, I don't know if I would have been, like, a huge Rad Mom supporter because 'cause I'd be like,
right.
"Whatever, someone else do it. I'll just talk about home birth." But when you actually, like, dial it back and think like, "Okay, what could we actually do as women?" Like, it really is talking about how predatory this marketing is. Like, I
Oh,
fully
yeah.
believe that,
Oh, yeah.
And how many people hear our point of view and are like, "Oh my god, they really just wanna make money." Like,
Yeah.
once that clicks and and not just for formula, like, as soon as you see it in one area of, like, commerce, then you start to see it everywhere too, which I think is great for the human race, right?
Yes. So something I've been seeing too, and I know we're coming up on time, but something I want to talk about is we're seeing this counter rebuttal of, Oh, well, anyone who's an LC and is speaking up about this, someone will say, oh, well, you're just trying to make money selling mom's breastfeeding advice or breastfeeding counseling. So how is that any different? What would you say to a mom like that?
What would I say?
Yeah.
Um, I would say because we've had this awful problem of formula marketing that started back in the 50s and completely erased breastfeeding from our society until a bunch of women came back in and said, "Hey, we're going to do something about this." Did it start to rise? That those people can talk about whatever they want and sell whatever they
Yeah.
want. Um, because it's helping women breastfeed, which is better for public health. And
Yeah,
they're
I
not
think that's
selling a
exactly it.
consumer good product,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think that, like, yeah, big picture, first of all, an IBCLC, even if you're like a celebrity A-list, famous IBCLC, you're not making the level of money that a CEO of a formula company is making. So there's like the ethics of that. Not that making money is bad by any means
Right.
if you have value in a good product,
And it's just
but
like being a doula, like I do.
yeah,
Like I'm a home birth doula. Women
yeah,
charge for that because it's their
exactly.
time.
Yeah, it's time. Yeah, it's the time you're giving and the value that you're offering together. It's both. So, I don't think we should expect LCs to give away their advice for free, right? Unless you have a special bartering arrangement with a friend or family member. That's quite unusual. But yeah, the other thing is one is actually saving lives and protecting public health for moms and babies, and the other is doing the opposite. So there's the ethics of that too, I think.
Right, 100%. And
Yeah.
that's just another line that they've caught on
Yeah.
to. It's just like, I mean, I hear it all the time too. Like the wellness industry is an industry too. Okay, well, yes, like there are things that are sold, but it's like they all say that and they all say that to all my friends that are offering breastfeeding courses for what, 50 bucks? Like
Right.
come
Right.
on. And
Yeah.
you can do your own research, right? Like it's up
Exactly.
to you to discern what information you want to consume, like you guys always talk about on this
Yes.
podcast. Like,
Yes.
so if a woman wants to pay for that, go for it.
That's exactly it. Like, especially we live in a time of YouTube and like there's so much free advice on people's Instagram reels. Just go find an LC or IBCLC, get like you download a freebie, get a free guide. You don't have to pay for anything. You could do it instinctually. You could ask another mom and who's also a breastfeeding mom. So
And it would still be cheaper than
yeah.
switching to formula for 2 years
Yes,
or whatever you
that's the other
choose.
thing is because once you're on the formula, even if you're combo feeding, eventually that's going to tank your supply, and so then you are going to be financially indebted to these formula companies, lining the pockets of these CEOs who aren't even telling you all the risks of their formula to begin with. Whereas if you just pay like $50, $100 for a consult or in-person session, maybe even more, that's okay. That's a one-time payment. You get those skills for life, and you never have to be financially reliant on a formula company, which will potentially harm your baby. Yeah. So there
Great
we
point.
go.
Quit
Okay.
lining their pockets,
Right?
sisters. Come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, we got to rise up. All right.
January
So
28th.
28th, 28th. Don't forget, just head over to Radical Moms Union on Instagram. We'll post all the relevant links in this episode. Kaylee, is there anything that you want to say that I haven't asked you about yet?
So, Kat, did you want
Yeah.
me to say yes? I'm sorry.
No, no, that's good. That means I did my job. That means we covered all
Always
the
love
points.
chatting with you. Thank you.
Yes. Likewise. This was great. All right. See you next
All
time.
right. See ya.